Hello, fellow citizen scientists, and welcome back to another riveting episode on the Citizen Science Alliance channel. And where we left off is at this image. You're looking at what at the time I suspected to be, and what I now believe wholeheartedly to be a little hole in the tree canopy where this meteorite, well, it was still a meteoroid at the time, came through the tree canopy, and it lines up just so nicely with the point of impact on the house, as you can see, and also with the direction of travel that I believed it in. I believed it to be going in, and I do still believe it was going in. And so the next thing that I had noticed was these weird lines coming out of the tree, like a trough. And that's where we left off. So here's a little further back picture of the half circle cutout and the trough in the treetops. Now, I should address something. Obviously, the size of my meteorite is much smaller than this hole cut out of the canopy. But that could be easily explained by the fact that these things don't just fall out of the sky. They are coming, there's a whole shield in front of them of shocked air. It's air that's actually trapped in front of the object as it's entering the atmosphere. And it's moving faster than the speed of sound. So any sounds that it wants to make are basically trapped in this cushion of air, shocked air. And these pressure envelopes can get quite large, much larger than the object itself. And that is scientific fact. That is established. So that, and also the fact that they are very hot. This shocked air is very hot. Meteorites may or may not heat all the way through, depending on size and composition. But the air, that's what you're seeing burning. When you see a shooting star or a bolide coming down, you're seeing the shocked air burning. It's kind of like a match against the other air. It's the friction of air against air that you're seeing that's creating plasma. And also an enormous amount of heat. They could definitely scorch trees, definitely scorch leaves off trees, definitely scorch tiny little branches off of trees, so that even subsequent years' growth will be affected. And so these lines will show up in the trees year after year for quite some time. So it doesn't even, these lines will fade in time, but it'll take quite some time. This is kind of like almost a new branch of science that I'm talking about. Because if you try to do any research on impact craters over trees, you will only find information about Tunguska. It's like that's all that the academia in the science world thinks of when they think of a bolide coming down over trees. They think Tunguska, and that's like almost like there's nothing else to the story. It's really weird. So, just for ha-has, it was a wild idea, right? That this thing could come zipping through the treetops, because that's quite a steep angle of approach. A shallow angle of approach through the treetops. But even if it were over the treetops, I could see that it could have done this sort of thing. So I followed them. I followed these lines. I followed them all the way back. This is another angle. But you can see the trough. And I followed it over other people's property. And finally found where it seemed to end, right at the end of these two white lines. That's how it looked to me anyway. And it sort of opens up down there. And this is what I thought at first. The red circle at the top is the house that I was living in. And down here around the center is where I think this object came in. And you can actually see the ground dips there. But to be fair, there's also a stream that runs through it. However, you can see this sort of fan-shaped, it's like do you see the V shape? It's almost like an ice cream cone. Let me see, I think I drew it in another picture for you. Yeah, here. So the darker green lines are from the explosion that went over to my house. I think there were a couple of separate ones. I don't know if they were the same day. I don't know if they were, apart. That's something else we need to talk about. I think there is some regularity to these impacts. I think there's certain places where they happen repeatedly. And at first I couldn't make sense of that. But then it made a lot of sense because, that's the cyclical nature of things is how we base our schedule and our clock and everything. So it doesn't surprise me that if there's an object, a near-Earth object that has, now we know asteroids can have moons. So, maybe maybe our gravity pulls in a moon of an asteroid this time, and then maybe next time the asteroid itself. I don't know exactly how it's working. I'm still working on all that theory. That's harder. But gotta walk before you run. So let's finish on all this. That's where I think ground zero was. Oh, this is me tracing the trough over other people's property. This is the day that I went there. I entered, you see where the blue dot is? That's where I entered the forest. And it looks normal up there, but then as you get closer to this yellow circle, this big yellow circle in the middle, when you get down there, it really does look like something exploded down there. You see big pieces of bedrock just strewn around like dominoes. Very interesting. Unfortunately, the day that I went, it was a beautiful day. It was like a 30-minute ride from my apartment. Nice day. But when I got there, the wind was whipping so ridiculously hard that, and it was, March, so the wind was really cold. And it was so bad that if I took my hands out of my gloves for any amount of time, like 30, 45 seconds, they were so cold I couldn't use them. So I just had to get out of there. Unfortunately, I didn't get any good pictures. But I couldn't stop looking at this. This fascinated me. I started seeing these things everywhere. And I named them. I called them arboreal impact craters. And that was my hypothesis, that trees can show impact craters, that trees can actually absorb for us the shock of an impact and then tell us later. I mean, that's not ridiculous. We look at tree rings and look at all the information that we can pull just out of that. We can figure out droughts and volcanoes and, years of all kinds of years of plenty and years of flooding. all sorts of environmental data is obtained just from tree rings. So why wouldn't we be able to glean even more information from trees? Not just the trunk, but the whole tree. And here you see, this is one of the first images that shows what shock trees really look like. They look like they're moving or melting. Sometimes they look like they're headbanging. In this one, they're kind of more like a melting. They just don't look right. And you see that nice bowl shape there. Here's another one. You see the line coming out. You see the impact. You see the where the bolide exploded as it hit the top of the trees. It killed one or maybe two, and then it shot some shrapnel through the treetops. I started studying impact craters on other planets, first the moon. One of the first things that jumped out to me was that several of them, it doesn't really look like there's any one singular impact on the moon. It looks like they happen in groups. Like there's all these straight lines of them. Even in this image alone, I can see so many. I put the lines around one section of them, but just look around. They are in straight lines, going in all kinds of different directions. Diagonally here, those. And then you have these diagonally that look like they happened a lot at the same time. And you have these two bigger ones in the left-hand side that look like they happened at the same time. It doesn't seem to me like there is such a thing as a single impact. And so my hypothesis was then that you can find things. You can find meteorites using the canopy. You can study the canopy, look for disturbances, and then read the trees to find out where the rocks are, where the money rocks are. And so I didn't want to keep driving an hour round trip to test these findings, test this hypothesis. So I started doing a little digging around my own apartment where I lived at the time. And this is one of the first things that I found. This is like almost directly behind my building. And so I went out there to check it out, to test my hypothesis. Let's see. And then this is what we ended up with.
There you go.
This is what we ended up with. And so that was quite surprising. And then go back to this one. Yeah, don't laugh at my funny looking pictures. Okay. I don't have time to be self-conscious right now. There's just too much important things to talk about. So these are more pictures of the object that I think is a piece of space junk that came down in Raleigh unnoticed. You know, people say, oh, it came from the highway. Really? How could it have done that without taking out trees? It came in from overhead. That's where it took out the trees. This thing is pretty big. It would have carved a path through the trees any which way it got here. It had to come from overhead. And that's really scary because that's less than 2 miles away from an airport, a major international airport, RDU. So the space junk thing is a serious problem. And this, I would really love it if a citizen scientist in Raleigh will go out to this place and find out what this thing is. I was too chicken to check it out. I was afraid it might be radioactive. I actually wrote to the NASA space junk guy, and he never replied to me. But it's really creepy back there. And it's really frightening because it's also right next to an apartment building. This thing could have killed people, a lot of people. And hey, if this is, I believe this is on property owned by the apartment complex. So, you know, if there's any money to be made on selling this thing, could please somebody throw me, you know, a little finder's fee? That would be lovely. This is it from the backside, showing how much earth it pushed. It was like a big plow that just pushed a whole mound of earth as it contacted the ground. Now this is another. This isn't the one I wanted to show you. But this is another arboreal impact crater. This is actually a way better one that is also behind the apartment. And that's where I went with this next video. Don't laugh at my ugly picture. Space junk finding, that's the one. Here we go. The dark black spots, I looked up. I think they're actually flowers. I think they're Oh, what were they? Um, There it is. I think they're these. They're really cool looking, but I can't really tell for sure. I paused the video and checked them out, but I do think they might be these black bat flowers. I wish I had paid a little more attention to the vegetation, honestly. But there's only so much you can really look at one time, you know. So, but that's what an arboreal impact crater looks like. And oh, hold on. The Lagoon of Doom. I forgot about that. So, and in case you doubt that thing fell out of the sky, I've got some more for you. Here we go. Let me just show you on Google Earth first the area that we're talking about. Okay. Just to give you an idea. Okay, there's RDU. Let's get north and south, right? Here's RDU. Here's the apartments. Here's the hole with the space junk under it. And here's the place I just took you, the other arboreal impact crater. Now look at that. Look at that. Something came and smashed everything flat down like a pancake. And who knows when this happened? Could have been just 10 years ago. Maybe people lived right here. Maybe people heard a big boom and didn't know what it was. Walking by the street, like, first of all, this is Aviation Parkway. Hardly anybody ever walks down the side of it. So who would ever see? Who would ever know that this happened? Even if it happened 2 years ago. Who would ever go back? Who would ever see back there? When you live here, you're looking in the trees, all you see is forest. You don't see that this whole chunk has been wiped out, right? So, there we go. There looks like a lot of activity happened back here, actually. But I didn't investigate all that. This whole area is a hotbed, actually, of activity. There's something else major over here. Citizen scientist alert. Go check this place out, please. Someone send me video. I've been dying to get in there. It's if you go out Globe Road, the corner of Globe, there's a little Globe and Globe. There's a little place where you can park your car and walk in. You're going to have to walk through some stuff to get to this. Oh, I'm sorry, way over here. Something happened back here. I mean, come on, look at this. Hello, sunshine. Something big happened back there. And I've never made it back there. But the site that I did the most study in is right here. This is a little part of Briar Creek. It's on Globe Road and Salona Street. It's all enclosed. So when you're walking down Salona Street, I actually have footage of walking down Salona Street. All you see is forest. You don't see this giant hole in the forest. You don't see that when you're walking by from the street. You think you would notice, like, if, a few hundred trees were wiped out down the street from you, but you don't. This impact was pretty big, and it took out a lot. And I think I finally figured it out. Because one thing I noticed, hold on, do we have on? Yeah, we have 3D buildings on. One thing I noticed is that there are these streaks, the lines through the trees. This has them too. And then there are also these. And there's almost like a bow tying that I kept seeing again and again. And I'll explain the bow ties in the next video. But this took me forever to figure out what is going on. Let's see. Science will tell you. Let's just go to Salona Street. So, okay. While I was investigating here, let me just show you something, an interesting feature. Because I'm not going to show you all of Salona Street today, because I did a lot of research down here. But this one little spot here, it looked like a miniature one came through here. It's like a little opening. And it looks like a separate explosion happened over here versus the main shell that was this. Very serious impact. And boy, And so I was particularly interested in this area. And so that's what I'm going to show you next. What I found there. Crap, which one is it? Yeah, these are all prickers I had to walk through. This is important information, but this is not what I want to show you right now. Oh, I know. Where is it? I'm sorry. Okay, this is not the one that I want to show you yet. Nope, that's not it either. Where is the one? Nope. Nope. Dang it. Yes. This is what I found first. Okay. I didn't know what I found yet. But I knew it was something. And when I found the other piece of it, that's when it all... Oops. I believe the other piece of it was the bottom. This is one of the shells that detonated at the Battle of Morrisville. Citizen scientist alert. I will show the exact coordinates of this piece. I would really love to see it end up in a museum. It's, if you don't think you're going to go there and pull it out of the ground, first of all, this is public property. You can't do that. It's against the law. Secondly, there's no way you're going to get it out of there without people seeing you because it's huge and heavy and you probably need machines. But it really does belong in a history museum. This is really an incredible piece of history. Sorry for my camera work here. But that's what it is. So if you have any doubts that you can find impacts by looking at your tree canopy, there's your proof. Look on Google Earth. Find these areas around you and go investigate. Send me anything that you find. I'll post it. I'm really interested to see what people find. I can't wait to show you some of the crazy rocks that I have found. I think that some of them probably are meteorites. And some of them, but I can't take home every rock. I've brought home so many samples that I don't know where anything came from. But also, I'm just as a citizen scientist. These things are made out of so many different materials. And there are only, so many tests you can do in the field. And I'm definitely limited by my lack of knowledge. But there are some things. I've looked at probably millions of pictures of meteorites by now over the past 9 months or so. And some of these things really look the part to me. And I'll show you some of those in the next video. But this is how you can start looking for meteorites right around your house. Good luck out there.